My goodness.
Talk no more, none of that shit. I'm gonna let you say
Let's go, eight.
got me started. Wrist frames carded. Pull up double parking. Don't even pay like I'm the owner. My young niggas retarded.
Yo, what up, guys? We're on the clock. It's your boy Caleb. Today I'm joined by Julian, Quint, and we got a new addition to the OCT crew today. You guys might have known him as Easy Money Kev when I met him, but now at Kevo Mufasa 7 on Twitter, we got Kevin Lucas in the building, joining the flesh of the OTC squad. So how are we feeling today, Kevin? The rest of the guys?
Man, I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate y'all for having me, man. Let's get it cracking, man. It's an honor and a privilege.
Fun cycle. It's gonna be a fun
let's do it.
cycle. It wouldn't be the same without having you on board, in my opinion. So, how are we feeling, Quentin, Julian? Good.
Feeling good, dude. I feel like we just won in free agency, just adding Kevin to the roster. Big play for the franchise.
Dub. Julian.
Nice to have more guys who love watching the game in the building. Never going to say no to another guy's going to show up and do his thing. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I feel like we've interacted on Twitter like twice, like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe, or like not that long ago, but you know what I mean. But never like, we've never
In depth.
had those crazy long comment sections on Twitter.
We have a lot of intricate conversations to get into now, and we now have a fourth person to kind of level out all of our crazy thoughts and hypotheticals. So, if you can't read the title,
Sweet.
we are doing a little like what Quint's idea, and he referred to as like the Forbes 30 under 30 like type business or business leaders.
Yeah,
type
it's a rendition. It's like a rendition of that. Basically, picking the 25 best players under the age of 25 basketball.
Yeah,
Excluding rookies, right? I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, no, they have to have played a minute in the NBA. Obviously, no like Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama, and none of those guys are going to be on the list. They had to have played a minute of NBA games. Kind of our criteria, or how we're thinking about it, I guess, is reviewing these players like a company or like a business leader as an investment. So we're looking at the top 25 players under 25 who we would invest our belief, our faith in, going forward for the rest of their career. So without any questions, anybody got anything else they want to add in for the people?
Would you say we're buying stock in these players?
Yeah, I'd say we're buying stock, but I don't want to feel like no ceilings whole like market thing or whatever.
I honestly can't believe I put Anthony Edwards at 3. I feel like I don't know. Like, looking back on that, man, I'd rather have Killian Hayes. Let's keep it real.
Here we go. All right. We're going to start with the honorable mentions. This means that, at least one of us ranked them in our top 25, but, they didn't, show up in the composite top 25. We're going to start with Herbert Jones. Julian, you had him, top 25, you met 25. If you want to kind of start the conversation about Herb Jones, and any of us could kind of weigh in. We'll move through some of these pretty quickly, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the offensive game goes literally anywhere, he's an elite two-way player. Like, he's already one of the best defenders in the league for his age. I think he's on a team that desperately needs him to be a lockdown guy, especially given how many tough matchups he's going to have to go through in the playoffs, especially in the West. He probably guards Ant-Man. He probably guards Dame. He probably guards Shaedon Sharpe in 5 years. Josh Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If he can become a shutdown, not just a shutdown defender, which I think he can already be, but if the off the dribble stuff develops at all, we're looking at an elite two-way play. And I don't think that his offensive ceiling is quite nearly as high as a lot of the other guys on this list, but I think that his defense is so good that a guy who I think can be an all defensive first team player and potentially a defensive player of the year, deserves top 25 mention.
I mean, I agree with you. I think he's like an all defensive level player. I think he can creep into that third team at some point this season. It just adds to his bag offensively, and who knows? Yeah, that's a valid pick.
Kev?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, to me, as long as the jumper doesn't have to be great, it just has to be respectable. You just got to get defenses to at least commit to, you know what I'm saying? Because especially on that team, hopefully Zion gets healthy. I know we'll touch on him. Like, you need all the spacing you can get, right? Because Zion going to clog up
True.
all that paint. And same thing with Valanciunas. So the defense speaks for itself. He's lanky as I don't know what, like active in the passing lanes. You can put him on any of the best offensive talents in the league, like Julian was saying. So I love Herb Jones. I've loved him since he was in college, man. He's just a hell of a player, perfect connector piece. And I mean, as a playmaker, he's really good too. So again, he just gets that jumper respectable. I mean, it's only up from here.
Yeah.
The Zion take that's valid.
Yeah, I think you guys covered kind of all the bases. My biggest thing, kind of like Kev mentioned, was the jumper. I think if he can just be a respectable catch and shoot 3-point jump shooter, his value goes up way higher. I really like the juxtaposition that the Pelicans kind of have with Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, where Trey's more of the shooter. A lot of people don't really rate his defense, but I think he's a really, really underrated defender, and we'll talk about him a bit later. But I think they're both really, really good role players to have around a guy like Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, even if you want to emphasize him, CJ McCollum. I think both of them, and more specifically Herb Jones, if he can take a small leap, will definitely have a much better return, investment than I think a lot of people have in him. Kind of moving on to Walker Kessler, I guess we'll let Julian open that one again. He's always been a Walker Kessler guy, so it only feels right to kind of let
I support it.
I support too. I was very close to ranking Walker in my top 25. I'd say maybe he was like 26, 27-ish. There's names, a lot of young talent in the league right now. So, Julian, give us our case for Walker Kessler.
So it's funny. The first time I saw Walker Kessler was when I was watching an Auburn game to watch Jabari Smith Jr. And I just saw this big dude run down the floor, catch lobs, block everything, even though he looks like he's one of the most unathletic people I've ever seen. If you watch him walk up and down, has the weirdest looking jump shot I've ever seen. But for whatever reason, it's getting better.
Sounds personal. Yeah, go on.
He can be a premier shot blocker in this league. If he can shoot to DeAndre Ayton range, offensively, I don't think he actually needs a 3-ball in the way that some of these other guys do. And especially given with how many teams are putting these long, lanky, weird power for the Evan Mobley, Victor Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren type guys next to a solid 5. I think that's the way the league's going. And I think that he is just such a great fit to play that solid 5 role. I love him going forward. I don't think that his ceiling is tremendous. I just think he's going to be a solid, there's top 10 upside as a center in this league in the next 5-10 years.
Well, I'll say this, getting Walker Kessler and that trade of the whole Gobert thing makes Danny Ainge look a genius. It's a big return on investment, if we're going to call it that. And Walker Kessler, you're going to need somebody that can defend a guy like Giannis, Embiid, or Jokic if you want to do anything in the playoffs over the next 5, even 10 years. And now that big men are becoming more of a luxury in the NBA, that's good that he's there. I do think that a guy like Kessler, he would get his career would have a better trajectory if he had that Brook Lopez type of transition where he added a jumper to his bag. I guess we saw Rudy Gobert hit a 3 in the Olympics, quote unquote, losing his virginity. That's an interesting comp, but he decided to go with that. And Walker Kessler can do the same. That'd be big for him.
I'll say that the thing with Walker Kessler that I like the most is not him as an individual player, but I think his fit with the Jazz and what they're building around him is what makes him so valuable. And I think that's the reason why I maybe didn't have him in my top 25, because I think the investment that you'd have on him as a player really should be directed towards the entire organization, because their draft class they brought in was unbelievable in terms of offensive talent and then two-way talent, getting Hendricks, George, and Sensabaugh, the higher marquee names. Those 3 guys play perfectly next to a guy like Walker Kessler, and then other talent they have on the roster like Larry Markkinen. I could honestly talk all day about the Jazz young core, but I think Kessler is the best piece that they have going forward in terms of consistency, like floor. And I really am just excited to see kind of what his second year looks like. Does the rim protection stick? Do teams kind of figure out how to break him down the pick and roll? I don't know. Kev, do you got any thoughts on him?
Yeah, lob threat, as his teammates, I'm pretty sure they all feel comfortable pressuring the ball because they know even if they do blow by them, that he's gonna be there holding down the paint and holding down the rim. So to me, I completely understand it. I think the offensive capabilities are there. They might not be amazing, but I mean, if you're the Jazz, you should, like you just said with that draft class and Lowry Markkinen having the year that he just had, he shouldn't ask to be a top 3 scoring option, for the foreseeable future. So I think he's gonna be a hell of a player.
Yeah, I agree. The next two we're going to kind of turn over to Quint to lead kind of the initiation of the discussion. Quint, you had Michael Porter Jr. 22nd on your list. Tell us why.
Oh, dude, MPJ, man, he's built different. He has the mentality. Like the main thing that I like is I like making player comps of like historical NBA greats. And what I see in a guy like MPJ and Keegan Murray, who we'll talk about later, is they got that Kevin Durant archetype of like a 6'10" guy that is shooting over people, doesn't see them, and has really clean form. Like he's one of the best. I think he's one of the best. He might be the most efficient spot up shooter in basketball. And with his like injury progression over time, like getting over this back issue, and now I feel like losing Bruce Brown might be a blessing in disguise. They already have KCP does a lot of his roles on the defensive end, and now a lot of those touches could go to MPJ, Jamal Murray, and I feel like now that they just had that playoff run, I can see him making a splash next season. And like, if albeit injuries don't affect him, I think he could be like a 20 points per game guy that's efficient and adding value. And like, I actually saw some of his I think he's made some defensive leaps too over the playoffs. Like he can guard a lot of positions just because of his length, and he can he can hang with a lot of people, which I think is good. So that's the type of player I like. You guys can comment on that or whatever. I can go to Kuminga too.
I think my biggest thing about Michael Porter Jr. is going to fall on, consistency. I think we'll talk about a handful of guys on this list about availability. I think it's a combination of those two things. I think he's got to, stay on the floor. Like you said, he was pretty consistent with his availability in the playoff run, but his consistency and performance really kind of waned game to game. I really do agree though with what you said is his role on that team could, kind of similar to Walker Kessler, could really prompt like high-end returns for a role player. I don't know. He's a great catch and shoot player. I think he's really got to work on attacking the basket. He has obviously still has some lingering back problems. I mean, when you watch him kind of move towards the basket, he looks a little timid. I think he does have some mobility issues in that lower back. And speaking of somebody who has lower back problems, I mean, it definitely fucks up your game, dude. It definitely.
Dude, he yams on. I'll say this: he yams on people on occasion. Like you might not see it, but dude, I think this one he had a dunk on KD in the playoffs. Like that was nasty. Like he has that potential.
It's just got to be, you've got to be able to get that in between though. If you can't always be dunking on people and getting those high powerful finishes. He needs to be able to attack the basket and get M1s. He needs to finish around contact and finish through contact, even if
valid.
You know what I mean?
He might be in that. He might
dunk on anybody, bro.
That's true. That's true. But he might be in that Daryl Morey philosophy of everything at the rim or at three. I know. Daryl Morey. Talk about that later, but.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a couple issues with MPJ. I think the talent is there. Here's the thing. Everyone says the prototype of Kevin Durant, and I think that gets thrown out a lot. And I think, yes, he is 6'10" and can shoot over people. That's kind of where it ends for me. I don't think he has that off the dribble. Like the catch and shoot stuff's there. It's great. He was unplayable defensively in the NBA Finals, man. I'm sorry. He was the reason that the Heat were able to get back into that game is because Michael Porter Jr. couldn't stop anybody. That could be injuries. That could be something different, and I get that. I think that there's a long way to go before we start putting him in. I think that another guy who's on this list that we'll get to later, Jabari Smith Jr., is has the potential to be a better version of Michael Porter Jr.
I'd agree. Well, do you think all the guys? Do you think all the guys in our composite top 25 would look good NBA Finals minutes? Do you feel like they're ready?
They all have been playing in the NBA for 5 years.
I think there's a handful of guys that would look fine, but I think the better context to apply it is if they were playing Michael Porter Jr.'s role. Let's take the Jabari Smith comparison. If Jabari Smith is a rookie, is playing Michael Porter Jr.'s role, the defensive lapses they could still be there, but it wouldn't be based off of ability. It would be based off of experience and IQ. I think that Jabari Smith would go in, and if he had, Michael Porter Jr.'s already previous career experience, he would go in and be a better player than him in the NBA Finals. That's my opinion, and I think we'll have to see how Jabari Smith Jr.'s career pans out. But I think the biggest thing keeping him off my top 25 list is the lack of upward trajectory for Porter Jr.
Yeah, I know. I get that.
He's still going to be a great role player. I think there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
You got anything on MPJ?
Yeah, MPJ is nice. I'm kind of with Julian in the same boat though, where it's like, to me it's just an effort thing. You know what I'm saying? Obviously it's the NBA Finals, but Christian Brown looked amazing in the NBA Finals just because he did all the little things. You know what I'm saying? Joker was amazing, and Jamal Murray was doing his thing. Like, you're playing with arguably probably the best passer in the game. You could get an easy 6 to 8 points just off cutting to the rim, playing off Joker. So to me, MPJ is good. I would like to see him just hunker down and get his mental right. Not saying that it's off, obviously, but just understand your role is not that complicated. You know what I'm saying? You have Jamal Murray, you have Nikola Jokic. You just have to fit in. That's why Aaron Gordon looked amazing too this year, because he just found his niche, found his role, and he mastered it. He started it. So MPJ can do the same thing. And I mean, we could look back in a few years and be like, man, we probably had him a little bit too low, but we'll see. I think right now he's probably properly rated, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think just outside of the top 25 is pretty perfect for him, because he did have high leverage playing time this past year, and kind of adds to where his floor would be. But I don't know. I think the upward trajectory thing's got to be a point of contention with him. Upward trajectory is now a problem for the next guy that Quinn's going to talk about. Jonathan Kuminga has kind of almost all the upside in the world if he really wants to tap into it. So let's hear the Kawhi Leonard pitch for Jonathan Kuminga, Quinn.
No, that's valid. No, you're predicting my words. Listen, I try to make those comparisons where I see him. I think Kuminga has a pretty good comparison to a guy like Jalen Williams, OKC, who I think me and Kevin both have. I think he's just I don't know. Basically what he can do is he can fill a role that the Warriors don't currently have down. They don't have a great. I mean, Draymond Green is on the tail end of his career as a power forward, but also plays a center. And I feel like Kuminga could be that modern day stretch forward that's super athletic, almost like an Aaron Gordon type guy if you wanted to pigeonhole him into a role. But I think I think one of the youngest prospects out of his draft class. I think this guy might be 19 or 20 still. And from what I've seen in off-season clips, which, hey, a lot of those, small sample size, can't take him too seriously. But I don't know, I think very positively about him. And I just see him as a guy that's going to surprise a lot of people. Well, surprise you guys, because you guys don't have him in your top 25. But I don't know. I think he's got the tools to be, really versatile defender guarding 1 through 4, and somebody that's going to destroy in transition. And, once he can create his own shot, I think that's the next thing he has to do. A consistent shot, being able to create it. And I think the sky's the limit for this guy. Might not be seen now because of we haven't really seen it in the NBA because Steve Kerr's been kind of low in his minutes. Almost like when Cam Thomas, a lot of people think Cam Thomas should have more minutes, and I think he should. But I think it'll come in time. That's what I see of Kuminga. I'm curious what you guys think about him. And if he's not in your top 25, where would you put him?
Kev, you want to start?
Yeah, to me, I have a hard time with him just because I always kind of take a grain of salt when it comes to the Warriors guys. Same thing with Jordan Poole, same thing with even James Wiseman, because you're coming into the league in the past 5 years or whatever, and you're coming automatically in to play in one of the best dynasties in NBA history. So the expectations are already high, right? And then on top of that, they play one of the most complex offenses in the NBA, right? So it's you're trying to learn everything as soon as possible, and you're also trying to find your niche at the same time. So Kuminga, the talent is there, the athleticism is off the charts. Me personally, I think the jumper can improve, obviously. So, I mean, he's a player, but I think kind of like what Quinn was alluding to, I don't think you're going to see the best version of him until Draymond, Steph, and Clay are kind of gone off in the distance, in my opinion. I think that's when you'll start to see the best version of him. But as of now, I mean, I'll probably have him somewhere right outside my top 25, if I'm being honest. I like him more than MPJ personally.
Yeah, honestly, I could see before I'll just interject here. I think that next season, he's going to need to have a prominent role in the team, because he's going to, if they want to be contending, I feel like they need to have him average 15 points a game, or be on that. He needs to be like the next Andre Iguodala, and that's what I see his bag as. Like Andre Iguodala without the passing fully developed yet, because he's very young in his career, and it takes time to really master that within the flow of an NBA offense. Julian, it seems like you have something you want to say.
Before Julian gets to his contention with the 15 points per game, I'll get my part out there. As I think that if there's anybody in the NBA right now that realistically has an actual career trajectory comparison to give to a guy like Kawhi Leonard, it would be Jonathan Kuminga coming into a dynasty, having a minimal role, primarily a defensive player. The onus is kind of on him to develop an offensive game. But I think the biggest difference, Kev touched on it, is that he hasn't gotten those minutes that a guy like Kawhi did early in his career. The role hasn't been there. And, for that to happen, I think there needs to be an exit of a guy that his name rhymes with Raymond Bean. I think that guy needs to go before we see the best version of Jonathan Kuminga. I think that if he can develop
Kawhi. Yeah.
But go ahead. I mean, I just kind of see it like that. That I think if he can, get a bigger role, develop, slowly bring along the offensive game. There is an outcome where he's a really high-end defensive player. He can get his own shot from time to time. And I don't think maybe 15 points is realistic next year. I think definitely 15 minutes should be the hope, at least next year, that he should see the floor for 15 minutes a game every night.
Listen, I know this pick is going to shock the world, and I know that's what he's going to do next season. The thing is, this guy's 20 years old. Kawhi Leonard won Finals MVP, I think 22, 23. So there was that 2-year gap where he kind of slowly got those touches, and the age gap is really a big thing for guys that come in the league. Like a lot of people are comparing Victor Wembanyama to Tim Duncan, and Tim Duncan had 3 years, 4 years in college to be ready, to be NBA ready. And that's what's happening with a lot of guys now. We expect an Evan Mobley to be great right now.
He had a couple years at San Diego.
I think he had 2 years there.
And they definitely turned the offense more over to him than Kuminga got with the Ignite. So,
I mean, this guy's been looking really, really good at the crossover. And dude, having Chris Paul as your setup guy in the second unit, I think will be really big for him. They need him to step up, and I think he's going to be that piece.
With them, with Moody, I think that both those guys are going to definitely see better as long as they see the minutes. Like I said, they need to see the minutes.
Because the real dynasties need that next young guy to really extend the dynasty. Like you said, Kawhi. I think a guy for the Boston Celtics, what Len Bias would have been, is kind of what Kawhi turned out to be. And I don't want to put Kuminga in that company just yet, but I'm excited, man.
Yeah, and he's only 20. Julian, you got any?
I'm older than him.
If I can get a word in,
yeah, go ahead. We'll see if you can.
Look, he's not even close. I'm sorry. I have more faith in Moses Moody making the jump than Jonathan Kuminga right now, and that's purely, and it's nothing to do with Kuminga. It's purely because of Golden State. We said we're going to wait till Curry, Draymond, all those guys retire. We don't know when that's going to be. I mean, at this point, we've kind of established that the Warriors are not really that good at developing guys behind the dynasty. And I think Kuminga is going to eventually be a serviceable player somewhere. I just don't think it's with Golden State. I think if Jonathan Kuminga is going to be anywhere near a top 25 under 25 guy, it's in his mid to late 20s. He has some sort of career revival, kind of like Andrew Wiggins or Dennis Smith Jr. is having. He's going to be a guy like that. There's not a chance that I just don't see, even with Chris Paul and all these things that the Warriors have in place, he's kind of just, right now, he's kind of, I hate to say it, he's kind of Jonathan Simmons rather than Kawhi Leonard.
That's a bit far.
I don't think it is. I'm sorry, I don't think it is. Can you explain to me?
All I'll say is keep that same energy. Keep that same energy.
Let's see. Extreme athleticism, great in transition, has a handle, no jump shot, great defender. That's basically Jonathan Simmons.
He's going to dunk all over Embiid. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to happen.
That's what Jonathan Simmons did too. You're not helping yourself, bro.
I like the tenacity here, the discussion, but let's save it for the
Gotta
top.
defend him.
You got more heated contentions that all of us can get in on.
Yeah, let's do that.
Tyler Hero, Kev, this is you. Tyler Hero, you had him at 19. Obviously me, Quentin, Julian are not believers. I have, some firsthand accounts, watching Tyler play and, speaking with him on occasion, but, great guy, hooper, but I don't know where the ceiling is for him. Could you kind of paint the picture of his future?
Yeah, to me, I kind of have him in a group with Tyrese Maxey, Jordan Poole, and Anfernee Simons. Like, I think he's kind of like, I think those are all like comparable dudes to him. And I don't think the gap between any of those guys is that much, separated right now. I think Tyrese will probably end up being the best out of those guys. But to me, like, that group is like, that's why I compare him to. And so the handle is definitely a concern. You definitely got to be worried about the on ball creation, especially come playoff time. Like, he's not really used to that physicality. You could tell he has not been good for us in the playoffs like that, I'll be honest, but he is a 20 points per game scorer. He does make a living off tough shots. I think that's probably the biggest thing with me is that it's cool when you're hitting tough shots, but it's not something that you can rely upon, right? You don't want to live or die by hitting tough shots 24/7. That's not valuable offense at all. So regular season, he's amazing. And so that's my thing. It's like we haven't seen Anfernee Simons in the playoffs. Jordan Poole had the good run, of course, a couple years ago when they won it all in 22. But last year he was okay. You know what I'm saying? Nothing
Notably,
amazing.
Jordan Poole is in none of our top 25s. I just want to put that out there for people listening here. So
I feel like Washington is where dreams go to die.
Definitely.
Exactly. So I mean, with T here, I just feel like he's underrated. That's not even me being a Heat fan. For those of y'all that don't know, like I just think people have come to just undervalue his archetype. Like guys that can just get buckets at a high level, not the greatest defenders, but obviously Spo's made it work. But to me, I think it is there. I think him potentially getting traded from Miami is gonna light a spark in him to be better and be greater, in my opinion.
I definitely like his future outside of Miami better than with Miami because, especially what you said, they're a playoff contending team. They're a team that builds around, going to the playoffs and, on top of that, winning and competing. And guys like him and guys like Poole, and we'll see kind of, what the future looks like for Maxey. I think Maxey, like you said, is probably the best, return on all of these guys, down the line in terms of guys that can help compete. I just draw the line on the defensive end of the floor. I guess I draw the line at half court with Tyler Hero. I think, on the offensive side of the floor, I think he's truly one of the most talented, basketball players in the world at creating his own shot. I mean, his workouts are exceptional to watch. The movement shooting, the consistency that kid has on his shot is unreal. He's been doing it forever. But I've never seen the guy really buckle down for more than, like a possession here or there and play high quality on ball defense. And I think that's the biggest thing holding him back. That's long story short for me.
Actually, I don't mind the pick. I feel like he's definitely borderline top 25 in this context. I mean he's almost like his role is very much like it's a mix between Jamal Crawford and Lou Williams as honestly more of a Lou Williams role of kind of being that 6-man type guy. I wonder if he's going to take a leap and become a starter with the Heat. I think he's he's made a living as a 3-level scorer. And I don't know about Caleb, but I feel like a lot of Wisconsin people don't like him because he was supposed to come to Wisco and then, went to Kentucky, right?
You gotta do what you gotta do, bro. I didn't mind.
Yeah.
I didn't really care. I didn't think he fit our program anyway. But
like I said, good decision in my opinion for him in his career.
Yeah, I think.
But I
definitely.
I like to pick as a 3-level scorer. I just think he doesn't fit my archetype as I don't know. I got a few archetypes of players where I just feel like they're gonna have that higher potential, and I feel like he doesn't have the physical tools per se to be a generational type of player. But I still think he has the skill level that's very advanced for his age, and I don't know. I'm curious to see what he does next year.
It's funny when when you said Lou Williams, I love that because when Kev was describing the archetype, the first player that popped into my mind was Lou Williams. Honestly, for me, the only reason I don't have Hero on my list is because I've been a bit lower on that archetype in my list. And so I can't really justify having Simons and Maxey as low as I have them, especially given I'm a Sixers fan, and have Tyler Hero on them. list. I honestly think he's been underrated a lot lately. With a lot of the speculation in the Dame trade, everyone's been trashing him pretty unnecessarily, honestly. Like, he's a very good player, very good six man, like legit Lou Williams role. But I like if I had Maxine Simons higher in my top 25, Harrell was probably going to be in my top 25.
I think that I have the same like case to make, but about Jordan Poole, where I'm like, Jordan Poole is gonna have more opportunity, more touches, and have really a franchise of his own. Where Hero, is kind of in a role where it's going to be limited in terms of like his output. So I guess for me, like it's the same thing. If I can't have Poole in my top 25, I'm not going to be able to have Hero. But him, Simons, and Poole, him being Hero are all like right there, 27, 28, 29 on my list. I think Kuminga is around there too, and Kessler is right there as well. But moving on to Jalen Duren, this kind of me and Kev's guy had him 20, Kev had him 24. I'll kind of start the conversation here with Duren. I think the biggest thing that I look at Jalen Duren and think of is just a supremely talented athlete. I think that when you look at these type of players at the big man position, when they can add, just one or two additional skills to their ability to, he's got rim running down, and he's a dynamic enough athlete to defend the rim and rebound. I think in summer league, he displayed to us that he might have a little bit of a face-up game next year. And I think that is something that is extremely notable. I think if he can knock down, a couple mid-range jumpers a game, be a pick and pop threat. I mean, if Jalen Duren can turn into a pick and pop threat, even if it's not the 3-point line, but from like 18 feet, you kidding me? The Pistons are a whole different team. The floor is spaced out so much more. So for a guy like him, I look at his floor at 20 years old and I say, he looks like, based off his production last year, as one of the most dynamic, center prospects we've had in terms of defense, switchability, his movement, his athleticism that we've had in the league in a while. He's already showing some of these developments that we've been begging from guys like Ayton and other players that are, much older than him to develop, and they just haven't. I think Duren has displayed he's got the work ethic. And now, it's kind of on him to show us the results. I'll turn over to Kev. I'm sure he's going to say a lot of the same things, but he's a player I'm really excited about seeing next year.
Yeah, you mentioned the age. That's my biggest thing too, is just that upside. Like, I don't even like using that word a lot, but I think when you watch his game, it's there. You know what I'm saying? Especially with the Pistons, with Cade, with Jaden Ivey, you're adding Nassar Thompson. Like, his job is really just going to be defend the rim, run hard. If you can hit some shots, knock down some shots here and there, you're going to live and die in that short corner more often times than not. Big time lob threat, like the athleticism is there. And as you mentioned, if he gets a little bit more of an offensive package, I mean, that's just a blessing for the Pistons. You know what I'm saying? So to me, again, only being 20 years old, I've seen him literally get better from AAU playing with Team Final out there in Pennsylvania. Memphis, he got better with Penny. And now with the Pistons, I think, especially getting a new coach, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't bet on his upside, to be honest with you.
Having a healthy Cade Cunningham is such an underrated thing. Even though I'm not as high on Cade as a lot of people, I've been very vocal about it since he got drafted. I wouldn't have taken him number 1 overall in that draft. I might not even taken him top 3, but I think still, a player like Cade Cunningham at his floor is a good floor general, can get his own shot from time to time. I just think he struggles with consistency, but playing alongside a guy like that, of that caliber, for Jalen Duren opens up so much to his game, opens up so much. And he just didn't have that last year. So, I mean, he had a great rookie year, but now they're getting back, arguably, far and alone their best player. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting year for Detroit. I was high on them last year going into the season. I think I should have delayed that confidence until this year. Quint, Julian?
I'm still low on Detroit, man.
Yeah, I'll defer to you on that.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't have a single Detroit player in my top 25 because I just don't trust the Pistons at all.
Not even Cade?
Honestly, the one I trust. So it's funny. I was not a big Shaedon Ivey guy coming out of the draft. I wasn't a big Cade guy coming out of the draft. I was like kind of like half and half on Duren, even though he is a Philly guy. So I will give the benefit of the doubt on that. I like his game.
Ivy notably not on any of our top 25 either.
Yeah. I I think that there's a lot of people that have a lot more faith in that Pistons young core than I do. And I don't think they're going to take the lead. And I think Duren's going to be good. He's probably between 25 and 30 for me. I just think that there's other guys who are on my list who are going to be more impactful on better teams.
If there's one guy I want to invest in on the Pistons, it's Jalen Duren.
I agree with that.
That's kind of where I'll draw the conversation. Kev, did you have any rebuttals to Julian or no?
I'm not mad at it. I mean,
yeah, I'm not mad at it either. I understand it. He just seeing the summer league stuff got me really excited to watch him this year. Kind of rounding out our honorable mentions, and then we'll segue, quickly into our top 25. We got Jalen Williams. This is kind of a combination of Quentin Kev. I will say Jalen Williams would have been my definitive number 26.
I agree with that. Yeah, he's my actual
26. Quint, you want to open up the show on this one?
On which one?
Jalen Williams.
I was doing some stats. Oh, Jalen Williams. Am I taking him? I mean, I think he was really impressive in the second half of the season, and I just really like how OKC is run as an organization. I feel like they just have the perfect pieces with SGA running point, Chet at the center position, who's going to stretch out the floor and allow guys to attack inside. And of the Jalen's on that team, the Jalen Williams on that team, Jalen Williams is my favorite player. And I think that, I don't know, I think he has the tools to be a two-way player that's, I don't know, he's playing that wing position where, like, some of the all-time greats are wings. And I don't know, I see something in him. I think he'll be good.
Yeah, I'm with Quinn. I'm honestly probably even higher just because I think he has all-star potential. I'll be honest, just because he could. I mean, it's literally he's like a spider. Like, he can do almost anything out there. You know what I'm saying? He can drop dimes. He can score. He could defend the other team's best player. You can play him at the 1, 2, or 3, maybe sometimes even the 4, depending on what OKC wants to do. So, to me, I mean, I personally think he's better than Josh Giddey. I think when the Thunder take that next step, I think he should be like that second dude for the Thunder, in my opinion, if they want to really be a playoff contending team. So I think once he starts to find his niche, they're only going to go up once they figure it out there. So Jalen Williams to me is a major player. Should be a major part of their future down there in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I love him. I think he's the ultimate glue guy. Like, OKC, I don't know how they do it yet. To be fair, I do think he's going to be the third option on that team. I like Giddey a little bit better, maybe a lot better if we talk about the rankings. But I mean, like, you guys summed it up. He's like a do-it-all guy on a team with a lot of do-it-all guys. I mean, he makes it possible for them to run out a multitude. I mean, when they have a couple of guys that are still developing, like Ousmane Dieng, obviously Chet, but they have some like really funky, big lineups they can throw out there with Jalen Williams running the point because he's that good of a playmaker. They can run him along Giddey and Shai because he's just as capable of playing the 3s as the 1, like you guys were saying. He just like narrowly missed my list, but I do really like him as a glue guy and connector piece on that Thunder team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I also, after Kev said he's like a spider, I couldn't help but try to come up with a spider-related nickname because, there is 2 Jalen Williams on the Thunder, and I will submit to the floor a new nickname for Jalen Williams, the Black Widow.
I'm scared. Not bad. I'm not a big nicknames guy, but go for it.
I know there's a street baller named Black Widow who used to play for M1. But, I don't think that nickname's been claimed by an NBA player yet. So I'll put it out there. We'll see if it sticks. Moving on, number 25 on our list, Cade Cunningham. Wow. I can just see people freaking out now. Who had him the highest? Let's see. Was it me? Oh, no, it was Kev. Kev,
yeah.
You have to kind of lead us into the Cade Cunningham on this one. Julian's not a fan. Me and Quinn are kind of fans. Send out the feelers for Cade Cunningham going into next season. All the raves around his USA basketball film.
I mean, when you look at every level he's been at, he's been pretty much amazing. High school, I want to say he was the number 1 player in his class of 2020. Oklahoma State led them to the NCAA tournament. I mean, now the biggest thing, I'm kind of with Julian on that Pistons core, is that a lot of them are unproven, and the idea of them sounds better than the actual player, right? And of course, with Cade missing a good majority of the season, a lot of people either don't know what he is or they just forgot about him, right? And so to me, I mean, you're looking at a guy that's 6'8", can pass the ball, pretty good shooter, hell of a playmaker. You can play him just like Jalen Williams. You can play him at the 1, 2, or the 3, and again, maybe even the 4, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how Monty Williams utilizes him. I think he is their best player. I think he is the future of the franchise. But again, the biggest thing is a question mark, right? We haven't seen enough of him to really be firm in the type of NBA player that he's going to be. But I'm a believer. I've always been a believer. I do obviously have guys over him, but to me, in that Detroit system, with Monty Williams, with the rest of those guys there, obviously we know that the perimeter shooting isn't the best, but Cade has the tools, man. So I think eventually he's gonna be. I don't know exactly his numbers last year or excuse me 2 years ago, but I think eventually he'll be a guy that's like 20 points per game scoring in this league and probably like 8 assists.
Yeah, I hear you. I think how we'll do the top 25, just kind of thinking out loud, is, Kev was the highest on him. So I think Julian's going to give the rebuttal. He was the lowest on him. And then if me or Quint have something to chime in, we can do so. But I think that's how we'll kind of keep things moving. So,
I like that format.
Some time.
Not just because I get to speak first, but I do like that format.
Yeah, we should have done it from the jump. Go ahead, Julian.
So my big thing with Cade. So when I watched him in college, I love the length. I love the ability to pass. He's just, I don't know how to say this. I think he's just too slow for me. Like, there's a difference between methodical and slow, right? Like,
Luka
a great example, like Stephon Castle, who I'm watching right now going into UConn. Methodical, plays at his own pace. He can speed you up if he wants to, but he likes to play at that slow pace to evaluate the defense. In my opinion, Cade just isn't that fast. And a lot of the hype, I think if Cade Cunningham was 6'4", he wouldn't get the hype that he gets. But because he's 6'8" and can see over the defense and has that passing ability, that's what I think is a lot of the hype is building around. And the jumper just has to get better, man, from the outside. It just does. He needs to be able to force the defense to come out to him so that he can attack and use his size down low in the paint. Until that happens, he's going to be a good player, but I just don't see it yet, man. I don't see the vision yet.
I agree with that. I kind of am in between you two on him, where I think, he is such a great player. The size is such, at positional size, I'll call it, where he typically is viewed as a 1. I think his positional size is off the charts. But, I'd like to see him use it more. Like a guy like Luka Doncic is somebody he really should be framing his game after. Another player who I would, maybe label as methodical, with a little bit more leaning towards slow, maybe comparing him to a guy like Castle. But I think that if Cunningham could develop the shot, to, like you said, draw defenders out more, be able to attack closeouts a little bit better, that means he has to get quicker or he has to be more reactive to closeouts. Then the stuff on the interior, I think it's just around building up body strength. I don't think he's as strong as he could be. Just needs to work on his bag, I think. Like you said, he's not fast enough to just get by on his athleticism, at this level. Quint, did you have any closing remarks? Otherwise, we'll move on to Anfernee Simons, who was tied 24th with Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, no, I think Cade Cunningham is a valid pick to be at the end of our top 25. I feel like he's a lot of upside, and things that we've seen with Team USA is, something to be optimistic about. I'm just curious what will happen in Detroit, because it is Detroit.
Yeah, I hear that. Anfernee Simons, Quint, give us the rundown on Anfernee Simons and why he is a top 25 player to invest in going forward.
Oh, because he's one of the best shooters on the board right now. And I feel like that's a pretty valuable thing to have. Just, if you're already a great shooter, like, you can just open so many more things and up with your game. He kind of reminds me of, like, I don't know. He's like, if Dame were to stay, he could be like that Klay Thompson to Steph Curry kind of role, except for that. I don't know. He's kind of like what Jordan Poole wishes he was, or wants to become, rather. And I feel like his ability to shoot off the dribble, like, there's very few guys that can do stuff like that. Kind of reminds me a lot of Jamal Murray. Now he plays. And I don't know. I just think he's one of the guards of the future that's going to be a great shooter, and it's going to be a problem when he's a featured player. And now with maybe Dame potentially leaving, that's going to leave a lot of room for touches for him to excel.
I think I'll take this one on the low end. I think the biggest reason why I didn't have him top 25, I said it before, I didn't have Hero, I didn't have Poole, but I think Simons is the better of those three, you know, with Maxey being kind of at the top. And I think it's because he's a much more dynamic athlete than, you know, probably Hero and Poole put together. I think that he definitely has the ability to, you know, combine, you know, his athletic ability with that shooting touch that Quint kind of spoke on, and could become a much more dynamic player. I think we see the same symptom here that we see with the Hero and with Kuminga is what are the Trailblazers going to do at the guard position is going to determine exactly what Anfernee Simons next, you know, at least 2 years looks like, if not the rest of his career. I think that they, in my opinion, you know, they're much better off, you know, with a core of Scoot, Sharpe, and Simons to build around the backcourt. I think Dame obviously is, you know, one of the top 20, 25 basketball players on the planet and, you know, a top 3 shooter on the planet. But, you know, when you have a guy like Simons, it's hard to invest in him when you look at the touches they should be getting, you know, especially the on-ball reps you want to see a you know, a combo guard get like him in the pick and roll. He's just not initiating the offense like that. He hasn't been. And I think he could, but to be able to do that, you know, at an NBA level, you got to get the reps. And I think, you know, he was getting a lot of those reps as a 6th man for a while, but now he's just starting to move into starting guard territory. When you just draft, you know, arguably the best point guard prospect we've seen since, you know, John Wall, in my opinion.
I mean, for a 23-year-old to be averaging 21-4 out the gate, I think that's pretty promising. And I do, obviously they did draft guard heavy, but that's like very few players can say that. And he's not a super inefficient guy because there are guys that are putting up 20 points per game on this board that just aren't efficient.
What happens when he's putting
23.
up 17 points per game next year because Scoot comes in and takes, you know, a lump sum of the touches that he would have been getting. That's what I'm saying is why he's not top 25 for me. I look at that team and I say, you know, where does his future look like when they don't even know what their future looks like? So I think,
if Scoot cares about winning, I think it'd be good to figure out how he can make, you know, Simons play at his best so that they can complement each other. That's what makes a real great player. And if he wants to do that, he's going to have to figure it out.
Question towards Damian Lillard instead. I think you need to, you know, cancel out that email and send it to droppingdimes@gmail.com. See what Dame thinks about, you know, Simon's future with the Blazers. I think it'd be interesting to see what he has to think. Trey Murphy. I guess I'll kind of start this one. I am the you know, resident Trey Murphy truther. Stands bold, but okay, I'll take it. For me, I think TM3 presents as probably the most valuable role player going forward in the NBA, at least going into next season. You know, we were talking about, you know, best shooters in the world a second ago. I think Trey Murphy has a very, very strong case going into next year to be considered a top 5 shooter in the entire world. You know, I don't know, Quint, could you pull up the catch and shoot numbers? But I mean, if there's a guy who is better than Michael Porter Jr. off the catch, it very well could have been Trey Murphy last year. And then, you know, the same things we were talking about with Michael Porter Jr., you know, his ability to attack the rim. I think Trey Murphy is younger. I think he's a year and a half younger than Michael Porter Jr. I think he's still got the same ups, if not, you know, better leaping ability and finishing ability, you know, over defenders that a guy like Michael Porter Jr. does. But he has the same symptoms that I think that he'll run into if he can't add, you know, the wiggle to his game. Where's the off the dribble shooting? You know, I think as a movement shooter, he's gotten a lot better. We see it a lot in these workout tapes. Saw it immediately in summer league. He looked so good coming off screen, so confident, 3 deep behind the 3-point line. I don't know. This is a guy that if I were to invest in one role player in the entire league over the next, you know, 10 years, this is the guy that I want to have on my roster every single year because I know I'm going to get high effort, high enthusiasm, you know, a great locker room guy, and he knocks down his shots and he's clutch. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else you want more out of a role wing.
I think you're pretty high. I think you're pretty high in him, but there's some.
I mean, I only have him at, you know, 18. And I think for a role player who's still under 25, who could, you know, legitimately turn into, you know, one of the best, if not the best catch and shoot player in the league, I don't think that's really too high on him. I don't know. Somebody talk me down from my ledge, I guess.
I'm not going to.
I refuse.
Well, I'll say actually, you know what? You know what? I probably would have had him as my authentically my 26th guy because he's in that unique class of a guy like Keegan Murray, MPJ, those tall spacers that have a lot of upside. If he adds the off the dribble stuff, you know what? Could be
Kevin
the next
Durant,
Kevin
maybe?
Durant. You might be right, man.
Are we just gonna compare every tall dude who can shoot the ball to Kevin Durant?
Welcome to On
Yes,
the
and
Clock.
I won't. I can't be stopped.
Welcome to On the Clock, Kevin. Get used to it. This is the Quint.
Nah, I'm not going that far. But I mean,
I'm kidding.
Go ahead, Kevin.
nah, I know. But I like Trey Murphy's game a lot. Again, perfect guy to play. Hopefully Zion's healthy. Obviously, we all wishing for that. But like with Bi, Bi is not a great 3-point shooter. He loves that mid-range game. So when this comes to floor spacing, especially when you can shoot the ball like that, like you don't have to have a crazy on-ball creation like that because players is gonna jump out on your shot the moment you catch the ball, right? It's a jab step, it's one dribble to get to your spot, like whatever the case may be. He doesn't have to be breaking dudes off the dribble like that. So to me, hell of a player, hell of a pickup by them. His entire career so far has been really crazy. He's honestly way better now than I originally thought he would be at this point of his career early. So, I mean, like you said, to me,
I think he's so much more consistent than anybody thought he was going to be. And I had him as a top 10 guy in his class. So I don't know. I think that it'll be interesting to see, how fleshed out his role gets, especially with the high healthy Zion. I mean, high upside is what I was thinking of. And this next guy might be one of the highest upside players in the league going forward. Shaedon Sharpe, who I guess we could go with, Quint, you want to start the conversation around Shaedon Sharpe since I started the last one around Trey Murphy?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, he's probably the most explosive guy on this list. I mean, at the 2-guard spot, he's just doing stuff kind of like, I don't know if you guys seen that one Jalen Green dunk when he was playing on the Nets and his head is like almost above the rim doing the windmill. I feel like this guy does that almost every other game. And like, I don't know. That's a skill. I mean, obviously he might have a pretty bad night and end up on House of Highlights because they love to do that, to highlight the guys who go like 5 to 15 from the field and show them dunking. But hey, eventually he'll become efficient because if he's not efficient at a point in his career, that's a waste of talent. And you know what? Portland, they haven't had their luck with great talents, mostly centers. So, this might be the change. They got some good young guys in Portland, and I feel like he's got a lot of upside.
This is the first guy that all of us had in our top 25 on our list. So, I mean, there's no really like points of contention, I guess. The only thing I'll add is I think that Shaedon Sharpe is one of those guys who kind of like we were referring to Trey Murphy. If he can get even a little bit of an off the dribble creation, his game opens up dynamically. I think that if he can, consistently attack a closeout and just pull a little step back, whether it's from, 22 feet from behind the 3-point line, his ability to attack the basket, which is, I think probably the best in his class. That's why he got drafted so highly is because of his athleticism and his ability to attack the basket. I think he's also going to be a relatively underrated defender at his age, and he probably will be for a while. Just kind of tends to be the tendency with guys that aren't strictly defensive players for young players. So I think he'll always kind of be underrated on that side of the floor. But, if there's a guy that I want to invest in offensively for the future, very few guys that I put ahead of Shaedon Sharpe, to be honest. I don't know. Anybody else got anything?
I don't see the on-ball creation. I'll be honest. Like the athleticism is there, but like the first step to me is kind of suspect. I mean, I think it can get better. I think it can develop, but I mean, Quint, you know better than me. I think for me, I'm not a big stats guy, but like I think majority of the guys that as a rookie can average anywhere between 9 and 13 points. They're on trajectory to potentially being like an elite scorer, right? So it could be there for all I know. I'm not betting on it just because again, the athleticism is crazy, but with that first step just kind of being slow and you don't really see him ever breaking dudes down off the dribble like that. So I don't know. I'm not a big Shaedon Sharpe fan, to be honest. I hope he does end up being a player though, because athleticism is crazy.
I'll throw this out there. I think Cam Whitmore is the more successful archetype between the two in the NBA, and I think that people will look back. Yeah. Dude, Cam Whitmore.
You draft guys who love Cam Whitmore. I don't know what it is, man.
You've probably never seen him play.
You'll see.
That's probably what it is.
You haven't seen him play.
Did he pay you guys? Did he pay you guys?
His first step, just strictly speaking on the comparison that me and Kev are making on these two great young players, Cam Whitmore's first step is way quicker than Shaedon Sharpe's. I think that they're at a similar spot in all the other areas of their other areas of their game, and Cam might have a little edge on him defensively, and I think they're around the same spot shooting wise. But that'll be interesting to see going forward. I don't know.
I just want to see some 3-guard Monty.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's all I want.
What are they gonna do with Shaedon Sharpe though?
Dude, just throw that's what I'm saying. Just throw out a lineup with like Simons, Sharpe, and Scoop, and Jeremy Grant, and like some other big dude. I don't know. Not nerd.
They still have Damian Lillard on the roster.
They have who?
Damian Lillard.
Yeah, they're gonna trade him. Get Nikola Jovic, run him at the 5.
We'll just keep speaking that news.
Man,
That's a lineup.
hell of a line.
Josh Giddey. Some of us have him as high as 8. And 2 of us don't have him in our top 25. I think it makes it pretty clear that Julian should lead us in the conversation here. Why is Josh Giddey a top 10 player in the NBA to invest in right now?
I mean, I just think that a backcourt of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey is
without including Shai in the conversation.
Josh Giddey is going to be an elite point guard. Part of it's the team that's going to be around him. They've surrounded him with shooters, with guys that can create. But I think his deficiencies defensively are not going to be as much of an issue because of how dominant he can be offensively. He's one of the best passers I've ever seen. It's ridiculous, some of the passes he makes. I don't know if you guys remember that. What?
Giddey?
Yes, Josh Giddey.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen, there's one play where he's like got a dude jumping up and down in his face, and he somehow is throwing an inbounds pass, just beautiful dime lob to, I think it's Kenrich Williams. The guy is oversized at his position, I think he's just a significantly better version of Cade Cunningham. That's why I have him so high. If people think Cade Cunningham can be a top 25 young player in this league, I think a significantly better version of him can be a top 10 player. That's the Josh Giddey hype.
I'm just not a fan, I'll be honest. Like, I think he is a player. I think he's going to be really good, I'll be honest. But to me, the lack of athleticism, that's whatever. Like, guys can overcome that, right? We've seen Luka do it. He's shown flashes of it already in his young career. But to me, the defensive thing, I'm not even too worried about because, I mean, you kind of hit on it. But even just having Chet, right? Chet going to cancel out a lot of those problems. So, to me, I don't know, man. I like Jalen Williams a lot more for some reason. I don't know what it is. I could be way wrong. I mean, I don't mind being wrong, but I just think, again, like I said earlier, if I think when OKC really takes that jump to being like a consistent playoff team, I think Jalen Williams is going to be that number 2, and I think Giddey would be the perfect, as you mentioned earlier, connector piece, right? So, I mean, it's a lot to like there. I can't sit here and say he's a bad player because he is a good player. For some reason, it's something I just don't see in him, but I could be wrong.
I don't like the jump shot. I'm not a big believer in the jump shot. I think there's a little bit of I just think he's not going to be able to play the 1. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is that positionally on that team. I mean, Quentin had him listed as a power forward, which is egregious, but he's definitely a guard. He's been a guard his entire life, but I don't think that he's going to be the lead guard for the Oklahoma City Thunder team that, potentially, is the best return on, this long-term tank and pick accumulation that they've had. I think his upsides maybe as a 6th man on that team. I have him around, 21-ish. I don't know. I think Kev touched on it. I don't think that he's as high upside as Jim Williams, but I think his floor is a little bit higher. I think Julian touched on the passing stuff, which I think he's just a wizard with the ball in his hands, and some guys are just like that. But I don't know where his ultimate upside is, and that's why I kind of have him. I have him at 24, but I think, he's in that same kind of class with, Jalen Williams, Poole, Simons, Hero for me, where it's like, I see what this guy does right now for a team, and it definitely contributes, to winning on occasion. But like, where is he come in as like a franchise piece, I guess, is what I'm trying to
I think Yeah, I'll say a few things. If you guys want to look at if you guys want to use all the stats context tab, which is the next one over, basically has the entire stats for all the players on our list in order of the hypothetical 2K ratings I created. So use that, to your own devices. But on Josh Giddey, pretty much, I think that he can't shoot the rock, which is a pretty important thing in the game of basketball. And I think that the OKC Thunder will quickly become contenders. I'm honestly giving them like 2 or 3 years before they can be in contention and really take that next jump. And I think they are going to get a lot of touches from guys that deserve more in SGA, basically plays the point, and then other guys that help him out, like Jalen Williams. And I just feel like Josh Giddey, if he can't develop that jump shot, what's his real value? And like, would he find a better fit in another organization where he's going to get all the touches and be a main guy? I just don't think he can keep shooting like 40% true shooting and just like be an NBA, be getting this much attention. So at 8, I'm sure he's got that passing flair, which is a high value thing, especially at a young age. But just like, I don't know,
can't shoot too rich for my blood. That's my connection with it.
I'm counting on the shooting taking the leap, and I think if he does take a leap jump shooting wise, then he's going to be their second best player.
I don't know if you'll get me on the Giddey over Holmgren train, but you can sure try. Franz Wagner, if we're okay with pivoting. Franz Wagner for the Magic, I'll kind of start it out. I really like Franz coming into his draft class. This is his 4th year going into his 3rd year in the league? 3rd, yeah. I like his, just kind of a do-it-all perspective as a wing. Kind of can do a little bit of everything. Great length, great positional size that, you kind of put him in at the 2 or the 3, depending on who you ask. I think he has some upside to be like an okay, 2 option, kind of be a primary, scorer for some units on the Magic going forward. I think he plays very well, similarly to some guys that we've talked about. I think he plays very well with their current group of talent, especially the younger talent. I think just the biggest thing for me is he going to be this good of a scorer every year? Because last year he was unbelievable. I mean, some of the stuff that he can do, getting to the basket is, I don't know, it's just pro moves. This guy's got every single pro move in the book, inside out wise. Is that going to be, his consistent level of scoring? Because if it is, I think that he has a great case for being not only top 25, but being top 15 on our list here. If he's going to be able, be a consistent, number 2 scoring type output, like a guy like a Simons, I don't know. That's kind of my take on it is, the sky's the limit for him still. I think that he can get more and more consistent scoring the ball, but is this what we're going to be able to expect from, 17 points a game plus?
Yeah, I've never been more proud to be wrong about a guy. Being a Michigan State fan, I just did not like Franz or Mo Wagner being a Spartan. So I'm glad that he's proved me wrong. He's in a great situation to really maximize his talents. I think they've drafted really well with Paolo. We'll see how, touches get dispersed with this recent draft class. I think, Anthony Black should make a lot of those guys' life a lot easier. Markelle Fultz is still off the bench. So Franz is really good. Like you said, he's just honestly a complete game. The jumper is there, good patience. You never see him really rattled. He's always playing at his own speed, can get to his spots, knows how to make the right plays at all times. So, I mean, I'm not mad at this pick whatsoever. I think he can only get better too. He's still he's barely even 21, 22 maybe. So
it definitely I like his game when you look at a player like Jet Howard last year for Michigan, the way that he played. I think when you look at how that type of connector piece translates to the NBA, it's very hit or miss. I think when a guy hits, it can seem really surprising when a guy who's kind of that do-it-all player. I think the other end is like a guy like Pokuševski, where it's like, they kind of do everything. But I think Franz actually does a little bit of everything. Yeah, I mean, Poku is like
that's
the lowest tier end version of a guy like Franz Wagner, plus positional size, can pass the ball a little bit, put it on the floor a little bit, play defense a little bit, switch a little bit. But I think Franz does at a much higher level, obviously. But what is the type?
We'll go with that.
What is that type of ceiling though? You know, like if he can do everything well, what is going to be is like one outlier skill set. So I don't know.
I'm definitely sleeping on Franz.
15-ish, 15 to 20-ish.
I mean, honestly, for a guy who's that young, last season he was pretty much playing at league average efficiency on like almost all levels. I mean, he's playing on a Magic roster that's only going to get better with time. So I honestly, I think I'm sleeping on him. I think I just forgot about him. In all honesty, he could.
I think he has a game that's very forgettable. I think that's kind of what Kev was saying, though. Is it'll kind of sneak up on